Okay, so normally when I'm shading, make a new layer. I'll go with my color layer. I will set it to multiply. Depending on the shade, I'll usually go with a dark blue for my shading. I will pick a direction that I want the light to be coming from, and I use a lasso fill tool. I had to figure out, I had to look up how to make one of these or find it, because I couldn't find it when I originally had my program open. But basically, it's just a selection tool that automatically fills with color when you have it. So I'll usually just start filling the color for things that I want relatively where I want the shading. And I'll usually do that through the whole thing and erase where if things overlap where I don't want them. Because it's really quick. I like how like graphic it can look, how easily it can get done. And for the most part, how quickly you can get shading done. Especially since it's really easy to erase shadow, and bring things back into like where they would have light on them, like this. And usually, if I want to put like more than just like a graphic, like the hard edges and stuff like that, I will use things like that's an eraser. I'll either use like a blending like a blender, like and blend it out a little. Not usually that much, but it varies on like whether it's a fabric or what kind of look I want to go for. Blending it out can give, when I blend it out like this, it can give it like a very textured kind of thing. There are times where I will use the blur tool on like soft edges and stuff like that. I'll usually use this on something that's more of like a curved edge, or if it's on skin. Unless I really want the hard lines on skin. Because you can see immediately that it's a very different texture to the hard lines that were there. But that's usually how I do like basic shading. And also, like, if a texture is too harsh and I don't like it as much, I'll usually just blend it out, just to blur it out a tiny bit, so that it looks more like cohesive and less harsh. And for like lighting and things, I'll make another layer, and I'll usually either do like an add or an overlay layer. And this can be whatever kind of light you want going on. I at first will use a soft kind of light, and if it's too harsh, I try to get like where the base lighting is, so that you can see immediately almost where the light's coming from, where it's gonna be going, and if I don't want it in like darker areas, I'll just erase it, and then go from there. Going on, I'll usually just make the airbrush smaller and go in a little harder with a harder brush, and put more work into it. I tend to put this under my shading layer, because I don't want the light going over that too much, because it can easily overpower it if you do. Like, because if the shadow layer wasn't over this, it would just overpower it completely. Like if I put like this over that, it can really wash out the shadows. But that aside, there will be times as well, like if I want a backlight on over the multiply layer, I would do relatively the same thing, but make it like really not like that. didn't make it really small. Like if you want a rim light on something like this, I find doing that, like if there's reflective surfaces behind the person, like this can give a really nice effect. I did this on one of my recent images on this one. You can see that I have my shading layer. I did this the same way that I just showed, all across the entire thing, and then I had my overlay for the lighting and stuff like that, and the additional like harder rim lights to really bring things out and just drag parts of it out. And some of the stuff that was in shadow seemed like it was losing itself, so I would add like a rim light around things, and it could sometimes brought out the image a little better, and it, like, I feel like I can add a lot to the thing overall for that. But relatively, that's how I do things. There are one of the few other things that I will do sometimes, like how I did with the light layer, if I am just going to add like a basic, usually when I'm adding shadows and stuff, if I want not just like one color, like, okay, so I have this. I have this hard shading here, but it's in like the blue multiply color. I will add another type of multiply, but you can make it a different color and lighten it a bit. I will usually just make it larger, and because this can, the color of your shading can change a lot about the image. It can, so don't be afraid to like fuck around with different types of shading, different colors, different things like that. But yeah, don't be afraid to like try different colors, different like shading types, because like this can and adding different colors together can like add more to an image. And you can always like lighten the multiply layers and any other types of layers that you're fucking around with. That's one of like a really big help with digital kind of thing. But that's relatively how I do my shading and my lighting. So I hope that helps.